Good morning, everyone. First of all, we want to apologize for being late. We couldn't get microphones working, we couldn't get cameras working, but we're here right now. And Asaph, I'm so excited that you're here because when I first heard pieces of your story, I was just like blown away. And then when I saw your art, I was even more blown away. So, do you want to introduce yourself to people that are watching right now?
Of course, yes. Hi, everyone, and thank you, Tina, for having me on. To have this conversation. And yeah, my name is Asaph Howard, and I do art in the city full time.
Awesome. So, Asaph, I was reading an article about you, and you and I are friends, but they described you as like an ex-culty.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so I was born and raised in an apocalyptic uh, cult called the Children of God, or also called the Family.
I can't hear you.
Okay, let's try the other way around again.
I don't know about you guys, but I cannot hear. This is like,
Okay, now I can actually I
yeah,
can hear you better now.
yes, okay, I can hear you. I can hear everybody. Okay, good.
Okay,
So,
good, good.
okay, so you were born in a cult, raised in a
Yes.
cult. Share that part again because I didn't hear it, so I'm sure other people didn't hear it.
Sure, yeah. So I was raised in, I mean, there's different names that people use for. I call it a cult, but it could also be called like a high control religious group or like a doomsday sect. But yeah, it was pretty much a Christian cult. Yeah,
And so, what age were you when you got out of the cult? How old were you?
I was 28.
28. And so, basically, from the time you were born to 28 years old, you were in the cult.
Yes, that's right. Yes, and then it took a few additional years to leave the cult mentally.
And what was that like growing up in a cult? Like, paint a picture of a day in your life. What was it like for you? Because I know that there's some people that are watching that have heard about cults, and I can't see you now. Okay, there you are. Man. So what was a day in the life like for you?
So it was. Is this visual for everyone else as well, or just you
Yeah.
and me?
Yes,
Okay.
that's good. Stay right there.
Okay. So yeah. So a day in the life really was like here. A day in the life was. I mean, the overall mission of this. Of like my cult, like growing up, was basically to evangelize, right? It was to convert as many people as we could to our religious views. So everything revolved around that, right? Every single thing. So we were homeschooled. So uh, when I was a child, my day-to-day life was like school, and then studying the Bible, and then going out into the public and busking or giving out uh, religious literature. And then when I became an adult, there were different activities, but it all revolved around that. Like missionary work, I guess, is probably the closest like actual term. I think.
And growing up, like, did you ever, I know we have this inner rebellious child in us, like teenagers. Did you ever rebel? Did you ever say, I don't want to do this? Or was it just so part of growing up and the way that things were? Like, what was that experience like for you? Was there ever any, like, I don't want to do this? Or was it normal?
Mm, I didn't realize that there was a different life, right? I know that a lot of young people, now that I'm older and I've been out of the cult for about 11 years ish, 12 years. Now I've come to understand that a lot of the culties that I grew up with were spending their entire lives questioning things. But I wasn't really one of those people. I think one of the reasons is because when I turned 16 and I moved to India. And so, at that time, I got married and started having a family, and eventually ended up having 5 kids. So I think during the like teenage rebellious questioning years, I mean, I was in India raising a family, so it's not like I was deeply analyzing my I don't know, my membership to this cult I grew up in at that time. I was just like I was away from my family. It was almost like I was focused on survival in a sense.
And so, it's really fascinating, right? Did you say you were 16 when you started a family?
Yeah, well, sort of. Like I was 19 when I had my first kid, who's himself older than I was at the time now. He's 20. But at 16, I first went to India where I ended up getting married and meeting my now former spouse. So it was almost like starting an adult life, moving to another country, and that's when I met my. She's now my former spouse, but when I was 16 or just around that mark is when I first met her.
And why India?
We were one of the dogmas of this cult was selecting like a third world or developing country to move to, and the reason was because this cult's um, ideology or teachings was that the developed Western world was like already too far gone, right? Like they didn't want to hear the gospel, and their hearts were hardened. So let's all go to these developing nations and convert them instead. So anyway, so it was just about picking one of them. Why India? I can't really tell you. You know, it was like India or China or I had already grown up in Mexico, so I wasn't going to go back to Mexico.
Right. And at what point, like, what happened to go from living that life and then getting to where you are today? Like, was there a pivotal moment where you just thought, okay, this isn't working? Like, what was that transition like? You said you got out when you were 28.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I mean, when we left the cult, again, I think it was more about we were just surviving, right? Like, uh, you know, yeah, what was it like? It was not a lot of fun. I mean, we were just. I'll speak for myself, I guess. I mean, I felt like I barely kept my head above water for many, many years, for sure, because we had never lived in the normal in society ever.
Would you say your experience is almost like culture shock?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it was culture shock. Yeah.
and so you had your kids, 5 kids, your wife, young. When did you come to Canada?
Why Canada?
No, well, yeah, okay. Why Canada?
Well, I think because I was born here, right? So there was always, so I was born here, and my um, the children's mother was born in Germany, and so we always had those two as options as to if we were ever going to, move to and settle down in a country, then we would have chosen one of those, and we just chose Canada because I think less language barrier, I think is why we chose it really, and a few other reasons.
Mhm. And when did you decide, or when did you know that you had like an artistic talent? Is it something that was always there? Was it encouraged in the cult, or is it something you just discovered that you could just do naturally?
I mean, I always knew, like I was always drawn to, no pun intended. I was always drawn to art. I just always gravitated towards it. I remember distinctly lots and lots of memories when I'm young, when I'm a teenager. I'm drawing things. I'm looking in a magazine and just copying what I see. Whether it was animals. Oh look, there's comments. Hey Sarah. That's cool. Yeah. Artistic expression wasn't really encouraged in the cult, but definitely if you had an artistic ability, then the cult was very interested in using that towards promoting the goals of the cult. Right?
Mhm.
Which I never fell into that category, really. But we wouldn't be able to just draw or paint anything. It had to follow or be in line with the cult's dogma.
And I mean, your art is very fascinating. and people looking at it would say, might have the experience that it's a little bit dark. Tell us about your art. Like, what, because I've talked to you, your mind is like genius. What goes through your mind when you're painting, when you're expressing yourself?
What goes through my mind? Not much, really. I think for me, the art that ultimately ends up being the best is the one where I get into what some people call a flow state.
Mm,
And really, I think it's a place of not thinking. All right, it's more of a blank create. Well, I can call it whatever I want, but it's just yeah, it's a place of flow. I don't know what else to call it. It's
yes.
it's where I'm not really thinking about anything, you know. And I think too, though, like negative emotions like anger, sadness, or even like creating artwork that's darker was not allowed, or it was not something that happened in the cult. And so I think that to answer the question about, you know, the dark quality of some of the art, well, I'm just allowed to express myself now. So I think it, you know, maybe I went in that direction first just because it was new and unusual, right? Anything with any kind of dark undertone, even a hint of it, would have been completely outlawed in the inside of the cult, right? So for me, it's new. It's like, oh my gosh, you can do this.
You can express, you can just create.
Mm.
One of the things some of you know, if you've been watching, I took my daughters to one of Asaph's paint nights, and he actually taught us how to paint. And one of the things that you said that kind of stuck with me is that there's no mistakes. There's no mistakes in art. You can take anything and create it. And I thought it was really fascinating because when I was painting the hair, I was like, oh no, I screwed up. And you're like, no, 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 there's no mess ups. And then what you saw in that was like a crown. And then my alter ego became like a combination of Wonder Woman and the Statue of Liberty. And she had this crown. And it was just so amazing how your insight and your like just how you could turn that mistake, so to speak, into gold. And I feel like, talking to you, you've turned a lot of, you know, I want to say adversity into gold. Um, One of the things that you shared with me also is that you battled with addictions. What was that like for you too? Because I mean, some people would, I've seen people go in really dark places and not get out. But what was that like for you to be in a dark place, the mistake, and come out of it?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. I think it's something that it's something that I still struggle with to this day, and I think that it's something that I will, right? Not necessarily the same addictive behavior that's decreased, but I think that it's more that impulse. I mean, it's a lot of things, right? It's so part of it, of course, was growing up in such a restricted environment. I think a lot of my addiction started because I used alcohol and different substances to help me kind of come out of my shell, right? I It was not a conscious decision. I think it was more just, oh, I can have some drinks now, and my kind of DOC, as people refer to it, is and was alcohol. And it became a problem over time. And when my marriage was falling apart, I leaned on it very heavily. I developed some bad habits, and I moved to Windsor actually to go into um, treatment. And when I finished that treatment, I was still struggling with it. Right, there was a lot of trauma that I had to take care of and deal with, and probably still is. Um, But if I was to kind of try and summarize maybe my entire journey with addiction, and like maybe if I was to think about one or two things that got me over the hump, one, the first and the main one is and continues to be um, to not make myself wrong, right? To not make myself like beat myself up for my addictive behavior. And
Mm,
before until I got to that point, I just had zero control, right? Because it was an endless cycle spiral, right, of guilt and shame and then addiction, and it was just on rinse and repeat for
mm,
years. And until I could tell myself or maybe believe that I'm drinking or I'm engaging in these behaviors for certain specific reasons, and it's not the it's not the drugs and the alcohol that are the problem. That's the solution to the problem, and I don't have another solution to, and I need to locate and look at that. And that process took, I mean, it took years, but that was definitely a significant turning point.
mm. I just want to share Krista's comment. Thank you for being vulnerable about addiction. And I think that a lot of people can relate to that guilt and shame and stuffing emotions and finding ways, like whether it's, the drug of choice is alcohol or sex or drugs or shopping. We find solutions to problems. And when we don't have a solution, that's the quickest, easiest kind of place to go to. And you and I have talked about this too when I was drinking a lot, and it was a real slippery slope. And sometimes when you get stuck in that habit, like you said, just get on that wheel. What are some other things that you do when you find yourself going into the rabbit hole, as I like to call it? That like blame and shame, and you take that drink and you feel guilty, and then what are the things that you do to recognize, oh, I'm in a habit loop and I need to get out?
Uh, you know, I hate to actually just repeat the things that I heard and didn't listen to for so many years, but for sure, one of the main things for me, I mean, I like my alone time, right? I like to essentially isolate a lot of the time, right? Or some of my time, right? And however, I can start to see a pattern if I'm spending so much time on my own and still feeling like really jittery and anxious and uncomfortable. And that's been going on for some time. And I start thinking about, oh, you know what? It'd be nice to relax with a drink. Usually, I think um, I've found that it's more like a toolkit, right? As I learned in some of the groups that I've been in, or some of the different like recovery methods. And in this toolkit, there's just a few things that I'll alternate between. But yeah, I think human contact to me is the main it's the main opposite end of addiction.
Mm,
That's the main opposite end of it. So not like for me, I didn't want to call someone and be like, "Oh my God, I feel super triggered to use talk me down," because I didn't like leaning on someone in that way.
mm,
Lisa, thank you. Yeah, the opposite of addiction is connection. For sure, that's true. But for me, I didn't want to. It was, I think, connected to my trauma. I didn't want to call and have someone basically tell me what I already knew. Hey,
mm,
don't do it. Hey, don't forget this time, and don't forget. But for me, it was more about that I was seeking one of the pleasure chemicals, right? I'm seeking dopamine or serotonin or one of those, and alcohol is one way to get it, right? Like if I'm feeling down, depressed, anxious, I could use some drugs or I could have a drink, and or I could also maybe call somebody who I do trust and
mm.
who does have my best interest in mind. And I know that I have people in my life like that, which I never did because I never uh, a cultivated it, or b even trusted anyone.
Right.
But a lot of times that feels like work and it's uncomfortable, and so I don't want to do it, and so I'd rather just sit at home and do nothing. And Even if I'm not doing or partaking of my DOC, my drug of choice, I can still just sit at home and do literally nothing, right? Watch TV. But when I connect with people, it's like I'm engaging with my life, right? And honestly, that's kind of where I'm at right now in my recovery, is like where I'm not triggered to drink every day all the time, but where I can go from being engaged with my life to being disengaged. And if I stay disengaged from life for long enough, then I start to feel the addiction like creeping back up on me, because everything feels like nothing feels satisfying,
Mm.
right? In my life, like nothing really hits home. And so at times like that, I pretty much just have to get out, like leave the house, go see someone, um, set up a meeting with an artist or go see a friend, something like, engaging myself with the world that I live in. And that's one of my biggest keys, to be honest.
Yeah, there's so much gold in what you shared, and so much is coming up for me right now, especially with the connection. And it's easy to do nothing. It's easy to do no thing about it. It takes something to put your clothes on, get out of the house, go meet with a friend, have stimulating conversation. And I think that's why it gets so challenging sometimes, because we have the strategies, we know what to do, yet we're not always doing it. The other thing that I heard in what you're sharing is that as humans, that we're always seeking pleasure, and we only follow through with things that are pleasurable. And when we get pleasure from things like drugs, alcohol, sex, connection, even, we're going to follow through with those things. And
Mhm.
if we don't get pleasure from it, we don't follow through. So it's why, a lot of times people, New Year's Eve, I'm going to start exercising and I'm going to lose weight. Why do we give up on that? Because it's not pleasurable to go to the gym and work our asses off. It's just not, until we find pleasure in it. So, thank you for sharing, because I know there are people right now that are struggling with addictions. They're struggling with alcoholism or shopping or whatever their drug of choice is, and they don't know how to get out. There are people that are addicted. Well, I think their comfort zone becomes agony. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes it's easier to live in agony than to get up and overcome. One of the things I'm dying to ask you about your art, again, I'm going to switch gears, go back to the art. How often do you paint? Because in your studio, you have art everywhere. And I'm just curious, how often do you paint?
I go through, I definitely go through different phases for sure. Uh, how often do I paint? I tend to paint in bursts.
Okay.
So I will have a month or a week that is um, filled with creating art. I might make two or three. I've made multiple paintings in a single day, many times, and but I don't spend a bit of time on any kind of schedule. There's been times I haven't painted for a month or several months even at a time, and then sometimes I get in the studio and crush, 3, 4, 5 paintings in a week. Right? It's quite erratic. It's very erratic, and being erratic, I think. Well, I mean, I think maybe it's part of the perceived artist persona, but more than that, it's a little bit of a rebellion to my extremely and overly rigid upbringing.
Mm,
I don't know if that's really true, but it could be. And I tend to lean away from structure because not only was the cult upbringing extremely structured, but when I escaped the cult, I mean, we were raising 5 kids. Life was very structured. Like with working full time and raising kids, and I was starting businesses as well because I wanted to build something more for myself and my family. even though those things didn't pan out, but they were my it was it was business school, I guess. Starting and failing multiple businesses was my business school, so I knew how to run some aspects of my art business now.
Sorry, I know I keep distracting you by popping up these comments, but I want you to see all the love that you're getting. I don't know if you can see them on the
I can see
sidelines.
this. Thank you. I see this comment by June. Thank you for your comment. Amazing.
So you are in the process of creating a massive, massive art show, which I think you called it DMT, Detroit, Toronto, Montreal, bringing artists. Can you share a little bit about that? Because I know I just got my VIP ticket.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I got the outfit. Okay, before you share, okay, I want to share another story, you guys. So Asaph and I were talking, and he mentioned a little bit about this persona, the artist persona. And we all have a little bit of a persona that we show to the public. And there's a quiz actually in the show notes. I created a quiz to help you identify what your persona is. But for the longest time, mine's like the controller, right? The alpha type, very put together, very like black and white. Most of my clothes are black and white. And you said, Tina, I don't think you used the word stretch, but it was kind of like when you were talking about the art show, you said, I want you to get outside your comfort zone and wear something that you wouldn't normally wear. And just kind of step outside the box. Do you remember that conversation you had with me?
Well, I don't remember that conversation, but I definitely say that to people all the time.
Yeah. So right after we had that conversation, because it stuck with me, and I thought, okay, so if I get to lean into this, any persona that I want, I'm going to lean into my, the social butterfly, the one that's outside of the box. And I went and bought, I don't know if I shared this with you, but it is a wine colored strapless leather pantsuit. Me. It looks awesome, by the way. But so tell us about this art show.
Well, I'm really excited about this event, and you know what? It's gonna be a really amazing. It's gonna be a really amazing event. How do I know that? Well, I know it because um, I'm creating the kind of things that I would have loved to attend, revolving around the subject I love, which is art. Um, so what is it? Well, we had it originally scheduled in this month, and we had to reschedule it because of issues with the building, which is being renovated. Right? They found some issues with the building. So it's a group art show. So we will display paintings and sculpture and photography by 20 artists, 20 between 20 and 25 visual artists from Detroit, Montreal, and Toronto. But what we are doing is creating an entire gala evening to showcase that art, and filling that evening with live entertainment such as, don't quote me on any of these, but here's a preview of the entertainment lineup. We have contortionists and an electric cellist from Detroit, and we have some amazing local musicians as well, which many people have not heard of because we don't have as much of a music scene even in the city as I would love to see.
Mm.
And really, it's an evening where we will have a food spread. So like a lot of different types of food. Bars will be there. There's a VIP room. There's entertainment. We're gonna have like body painting on some models. We're going to have some like a light show. Like we have a VIP and virtual experience and augmented reality sections. Experience rooms is what it is. There's multiple experience rooms branching off from the main location. So it's really a whole evening of art, entertainment, food and drink, and really a dramatic. There's going to be a lot of visually very striking things to see. whether it's in the form of art or in the form of performance. And I'm really, 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 really excited because I get a lot of pleasure from bringing something like that to the city because it's what I would have wanted to go to, right?
Mm.
I love some of the events that we do have in the city, some of the galas or music events or festivals, etc. But being able to bring something that no one else is bringing in the art sector is I don't know, man. It feels like very important to me because it's the world I live in.
Mm. I was so disappointed. It was supposed to be this weekend. I remember I had my ticket and I'm like asking you questions. You're like, about that. I'm like, what? And March is going to be incredible. So I'm super, super stoked. I can't wait to go. I can't wait to attend. I also know that you're in a studio for a while and showcasing some of your art. If people want to go check you out, if they want to go, like, what's the process? Can they just walk into your studio or do they have to make an appointment? What's
Yeah, well, I would suggest making an appointment, even though I am there most days of the week between about approximately noon and 5 p.m. That's kind of the hours I'm keeping, but I also don't stay there that whole time. I may go out for appointments or etc. But I'm going to be at this studio, which is basically near Wyandotte and Hull. It's like very close to Wyandotte and Hull, and I would love for anyone to drop in. And Melissa says, "Am I still looking for artists?" Absolutely. They're not looking. The thing is, I'm not looking for artists, but I'm always going to be happy to bring new ones on. In fact, I didn't even have to do a call to artists for this one, Melissa. Right? I just started doing it, and the artists started asking if they could be in the show. And to me, yes, it's the more the merrier, right? And for my job as the curator, self-imposed job, or the thing I like to do is group the artwork in ways that have a flow and that makes sense, right? And then to bring all the other elements. So yeah, so anyone who wants to come in and chat or come and see the art at the studio, that is an open invitation. But yeah, I'd recommend at least reaching out, shoot me a message on any of the social platforms and just make sure I'm in. But I'd love to meet or chat or spend time with anyone who's interested.
awesome? Awesome. Are you selling tickets to your art show like early?
Yes, they are. I'm gonna have to make a new Eventbrite page. I've already updated all the other socials, but you can buy tickets to the show as early as you want, right? But it is at the end of March, so I'll probably go ahead and put Eventbrite, like change the dates. Some people still have. There's quite a few people who have tickets already, and some people want to keep them. But if you want to get tickets, then yeah, you can buy them on Eventbrite, or I also have physical tickets that have the wrong date, but I'm probably going to print new ones as well. Yeah.
That's awesome. Sarah wants you to have another grand opening.
Oh yes, yes. Okay, yeah, Sarah. Thank you for that comment. Yeah, that was a fun time. In fact, you know what? I'm not going to wait until March to have some sort of event, right? I love events. As a former alcoholic and addict, I like events that don't revolve around drinking, right? So things like going to a club just does not make sense to me anymore. You know, even going out to like bars and restaurants, well, restaurants is fine, doesn't make like as much sense as it used to. But so for me to organize like smaller events revolving around art and a little bit of performance, or maybe showing something that nobody's seen before in the such as the light show, right? We did this thing called Lightform, and it was a really interesting light display. And so I'm gonna continue to do that. Yeah, Sarah, absolutely. Between now and March, stay tuned into like I'll post it up on Facebook and Instagram, but I'll think of something. I can't sit around for sure, so you can bet something's gonna come out.
I think you should do a silent disco.
Okay, yeah, that's a very interesting idea. Yeah,
I don't
maybe.
know if you guys have ever seen these, but there's like four DJs and you all have headphones and there's like blue, red, yellow, and green. And so everybody puts on these headphones, but every color is a different genre of music and people sing and dance, but the outside people are just hearing bad singing. I did it in Mexico when I went to Tulum in the summer. It was the funnest experience. Funnest? Is funnest a word? I don't know.
Mhm.
It was the best experience. I don't know if anybody around here has access to that, but that would be very cool for just an idea if you want to have a
Yeah,
different element in one of your rooms, a silent disco.
I don't.
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
yeah, I don't know if anyone's done that yet in the city. I think that could be very interesting. Yeah.
I would definitely be all over that. Well, I know that we've been on for a lot longer than we usually do. I just want to thank you so much for being here with us today, for being vulnerable, sharing your story, the highs, the lows, allowing us to see that this is a lifelong journey. It's like anything, right? Addictions, personal development. It's not like we're not changing, you guys. We're shifting. But there's those parts of us that we want to suppress and lock away. And I think what I'm getting from this conversation is embrace all of us, the good, the bad, the ugly, because this is who we are. And our purpose in life, our mission in life is way bigger than any addiction, is way bigger than any trauma, is way bigger than anything that we've experienced that's tried to knock us down. And when you see that about yourself, and you see that your purpose is bigger, it motivates you to rise above. And Asaph, you are like just such a testament to what it looks like to rise above, what it looks like to play full out on the court, to show up even on days when you don't feel like showing up, and to pull yourself out of the rabbit hole so that you can contribute to all of us and give your gift to us and to the world. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being part of my life, and for bringing so much excitement and aliveness to Windsor and Essex County.
Thank you for the those things that you said. It's my pleasure, and it's a pleasure to have you as a friend. It's amazing to have positive, motivated, uplifting, caring people in my life. It's very nice. It's something that I did not have. Well, I did have it conditionally. So it's nice to have it based on just the condition of you know, it's good to be a good human being rather than uh, the way that I grew up.
Yeah.
I really value all my relationships now. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. And I'm sending you this.
Love,
Love.
right back at you.
Sending you so much love. Everybody, thank you for being here. Asaph, thank you again. I love you, and I'll see you guys all back next time. See you later.
Bye.